Peter Hewitt, la-artistino. Not long ago I posted a video of my review of Kerby Rosanes Imagimorphia. One of the pictures that I showed you was this one here of my mech warrior. I offered during that video to demonstrate to you how I achieve the metallic effect of this particular picture, if there was enough interest in me doing so, and there certainly has been enough interest. So I'm back again to show you or give you some insight into how I produce a metallic looking surface in a picture. On thinking about how I was going to present this video, I realised that there are different ways to represent metal depending on the ways it's been treated. And I'll show you what I mean. I've got a small collection here of different types of metallic surfaces so you can see the difference. For instance, here is a little metal milk jug. And this is one I've pinched from my husband, who loves making his coffees, and this is what he uses for his milk. It's a little bit scratched up, but you can see it is very shiny and very reflective. If I put my hand here, you can actually see the reflection of my hand. And if I grab something that is brightly coloured, or even something that's not so brightly coloured, and put it next to it, you can see that it reflects immediately. And this is part of what makes the metallic surface look metallic, is that it reflects the colours that are around it. This is most obvious, of course, with this very chrome, very shiny like metal. And as you can see, the two bands of white here are actually reflections of the two lights that I video underneath that's been set up on my video rig. Okay, now if you want to see another sort of metal, we've got, and don't mind the product placement here, it's my Summersby pear cider. This also, of course, is metal, it's aluminium, but you haven't got that real chrome look to it, it's burnished. So it's a softer kind of look, and when you put something bright next to it, you don't get that instant, very clear reflection, but you get a feel of the colour that's next to it, sort of like a little bit of a blurred in kind of effect you can see there being reflected back from the metal. But even though you've got the nice highlights, they're not as sharp and intense as what you see here. They're just more of a soft look. So decide firstly whether you're going to have a very chrome looking metal or a soft burnished looking metal. And also, different metals have different colours. You've got gold, of course, or copper, or I've got this here, which is a real gunmetal grey look of a little muffin type pan. And again, it's metal, and it's actually got a little, hard to see, a little texture to it as well. But again, it responds more like a burnished metal surface, so that you haven't got the very sharp, bright, delineated white highlights in it. You've got more of a soft, sort of a glowy look into the highlights. Anyway, enough about that. I'll just put my Summersby away because it's nice and cold and it's a hot day and I want to keep it cold. Just to clarify there, I'm in no way being sponsored by Summersby. It just happened to be a handy metal object that demonstrated what burnished metal looked like, and so that's what I chose to use. Anyway, back to the story at hand. I'll show you an example of how I do the highly reflective metal, which I haven't done here, and that is to reflect the colours that are closest to it. In this picture that I did some years ago, it's actually a picture from my webcomic Terry New, and here I've picked this one especially because it demonstrates metal here but reflecting the yellow of the explosions and the fire in the background. So even though the metal I've coloured in as being a bluey grey colour, it's still got this very bright yellow stripes to it. And also I have added very bright, very what's the word I'm looking for? We can see very delineated areas of colour. It's not a soft burnished look with lightly blushed into each other. It's actually a very strong contrast in the stripes and the bright areas to give it a really shiny chrome look to it. Now this one, I've sort of done a little combination here. I've got the shiny look because I've added the white in to give it the shiny look, but I've also got a little bit of blending from the light areas to dark areas in the tubes around here as well. I'll show you how to do that first with the Inktense pencils using this robot on the other side. Okay, now I'll just go select my Inktense pencils and we will get started. I've zoomed in now on this little piece here of the Mech Warrior that I'm going to demonstrate on. Now the colour that I'm going to use is Paynes Grey, and I like Paynes Grey especially for doing dark coloured metals. You can experiment with the other sorts of greys and blacks that are in the Do and Inktense range. Actually I think there's a charcoal grey that's quite good, or I like the ink black as well. If you're looking at doing a gold, I find mustard makes a very bright yellow gold, while tan is slightly more bronzish. Baked earth I think is an excellent copper, and or you've got oak to get another sort of a darker, sort of less saturated bronze colour. So have a play around with your different pencils as well, and don't just think of metal as being grey all the time, it can be other colours. Anyway, to start off with, this is the area we're going to colour. Now to give it a metallic effect, I want to have a feel of reflected light around the outside, so I'm going to be very light with the colour around the outside and give it a darker stripe going down the middle, and then we'll let that dry and then we'll add the white gel pen to it. Now to do that, I'm not going to colour the whole thing. What I'll do is I'll just colour the bit that is going to be darkest, and I'll spread the colour out to lighten it up. Now when I spread it out, you'll see something else that I do. But I'm only just colouring this section of it. I'm not colouring the whole thing. I'm just giving a nice dark stripe down. There we go. Alright, to start, and even now you can sort of get the feel that it's metal just because I've given it a definitive, dark and light areas with a lot of contrast. The other thing I should mention as well is before you start, determine the direction of your light source. And my light source is going to be bounced around a little bit, but it's basically going to be from the top right hand side of the page down. So the things that are facing this side of the page are going to be lightest, this side of the page, and the things facing this side of the page are going to be a bit more in shadow, but there's still going to be a line of contrast at the base of it. Anyway, that's that coloured in, so I'll take my water brush. Now this is the Kuretake water brush made in Japan. It's the original one, I believe, that came out before all the others started to appear, and it's still my favourite. I think it's got one of the best water control filters that there is. This is the fine one, which comes in yellow. There's a medium one which comes in green here, and there's a thicker one that comes in purple, and there's also a flat sort of chisel edged brush as well. But we'll use the fine one for this because we're working in very small areas. Now to do this, we'll just make sure, put my pad here, because when I'm working with Inktense I like to blot out the excess ink if I don't want too much ink in one area and my brush tip becomes saturated. So let's just activate here and just spread it out a little bit. And the other thing you'll notice is that I'm not going all the way to the edges either. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm creating the feel of reflected surfaces on either sort of side of these tubes, so that it'll enhance the metallic effect by creating a high contrast area of colour and white. Again, activate it and just push it out a little bit so that it, there we go, and again. And already you can see it's got a metally feel now, not only because the Paynes Grey is this beautiful bluish grey which sort of screams, stainless steel, but, or gunmetal grey, it's a bit dark for stainless steel, but you've got that high contrast as well. So we've already got the whole metal vibe happening, and I'm only using one pencil and some water. There we go. And that, as I said, we have to let that dry before we touch it up with the white Uniball marker. So we'll give that a few minutes to dry. Okay, that's dried out now, so I will take the white Signo Uniball marker and I will begin to give it a little bit of a sharp reflective shine to make it look more metallic. So what I do now is I actually avoid the darkest areas and I just go along the border where it's starting to get lighter. So, and I'll just make, because it's kind of a tubey thing, I'll just do a little series of lines like that. And there you go, and you've got this nice reflective looking surface. And that looks very metallic now, and that's all I had to do for it. Okay, now I will show you how to do the same sort of effect but using pencils. Now the colours I've picked for the pencils is, again, I'm using the Polychromos pencils, by the way, is the Paynes Grey in the Polychromos. For the same reason, it's a grey but it has a slightly coolish tinge, and it's not quite as blue as the grey in the Paynes Grey in the Dearth and Inktense pencils. So to supplement it, I'm also going to use a little bit of the light ultramarine as well, just to give it more of a bluish feel to it. I'm going to colour in this band right here. So I'll start off, now with the Paynes Grey, I'm going to apply it but not right to the edge. I'm going to leave about 1 millimetre between the edge and where my colouring starts. So I've got a tiny little white border there, and then I will just gradually soften it up as I go along. Now if I want to highlight these divisions in this metal pipe, I'll just again leave a little bit of white along that leading edge there, and right to the edge there of this one, so right to the line there, but on the next line along I'll leave a little bit of white. Again, I'll make it darker right at the bottom and I'll make it lighter as it goes up. Like that. It's actually quite relaxing doing all these. I really enjoyed colouring in the mech on the other page, because it's only a couple of colours that you use and you just go for hours doing this, and I found it really just interesting enough for me that it's not boring, and it's just very meditative. Is that even a word? Meditating. You know what I mean. Okay, here we go. Right, coming across. Again, you can see my little borders. Darkest down the bottom, going up, making it a bit lighter. Right. And here at the end one, I'll just go right to the edge, because it would be in shadow here because of this connecting piece. Now with the blue, I'm going to take the light ultramarine and just blush in a little bit of that here somewhere along the centre. Just here where it's starting to lighten out. So you've got that bluey feel to the metal. And technically you can make the metal other colours as well. You can make it more of a sort of a warmer or cooler feel to it. So there's our pipe, but we're missing one thing now, and that is the contrast, the white shiny contrast. So again, I have got my Uniball Signo white gel pen, and I'll add, again, not down the bottom here, but up the top here where you know the direction of light is coming from, because you've always, remember, as I said before, the light is coming from the top right hand side. So we'll just skim along here and add a bit, some dots and dashes actually is what I'm doing, but not all dots. It's kind of, there goes my phone. Sorry, that's just ABC News telling me that something's come up. And there you have it. That is basically how I do these pipes to make them look metallic. I'll just do this once again so you can see along here. It's a little bit more tricky because I'm going to have to duck around this mech's claw hand right here. But same principle. Darker at the bottom, leave a little bit of a margin where it's shiny at the bottom. You can see the difference here. I don't know if the camera's picking it up that well, but this looks a bit more of a bluish, cool look. There goes my pencil. And in contrast to this, where I haven't applied the light ultramarine yet. be quite happy to colour this in pencil or in Inktense. I think it'll look great either way. Now, the light ultramarine, give it a little bit of a bluish blush, just moving down the centre there. That's not quite dark enough there for me. And finally, because the advantage with having the pencils is you don't have to wait to use this. Having said that, I would probably do the whole thing first, and as one of my last things, when I've completed all the colouring, I'd go in with the Uniball. I'm only using it now so I can demonstrate to you. Yeah, without you having to watch me colour the whole thing in. Little dots and dashes, no line, keeping them all sort of like the same, you know, in the same, I think it's 2/3 of the way up, same area along that pipe. And you've got a nice shiny looking pipe. You can see both media render excellent effects. Now how about if you're colouring in a bigger area that's not a pipe? Well, let's start off with the Inktense again, and we will do this creature's leg. Okay, I have got a piece of paper here because it's very hot at present and I can't turn the air conditioner on or else you wouldn't be able to hear me above the rattling noise of it. Now I'm going back here with the Inktense pencil to show you how I do it with the Paynes Grey. You have to make a decision here whether you want to be shiny, high contrast chrome looking metal like that we've got on the pipes, or whether you want to go with the soft burnish metal. The difference being the high contrast metal has very sharply defined areas of light and dark, where the burnish metal is more soft, transient looking blushed in effect of light and dark. More like you would normally do on most surfaces. But we'll go for the chromy looking metal because I think that's the effect that you're actually asking to see. Now with this we're going to take into account that the light again is striking from the top right hand corner of the page. So we're going to see this area here as being very brightly lit and therefore lighter, and down underneath here being darker. But because it's metal, it'll be reflecting light like crazy, so any bounce around light will strike this side as well and leave that looking very bright. So because, as I said, chrome's high contrast, so we will do this with a dark line here, again leaving about 1 millimetre, and then gradually spreading out, making it softer as you go up. Okay, and then at the top of this panel I'm going to leave that almost white there. Nice thing about the Inktense is that as long as you don't get it wet, you can just use the Inktense without water. As long as it's not wet and activated, then you can just, you know, colour in with the Inktense, no water, and say call yourself done. I like to use the water because I like the effects, the brightness of the colours that the water brings out in the Inktense. And down the bottom here, doing the same thing. Now this top panel here, I'm going to pretty much do the same thing, but I'll leave the white a little bit thinner than that side. I'm not quite sure what the fork is doing in the way, but then Kerby does have some interesting additions to his work, which makes it also fun to colour. Again, making it dark and then gradually going lighter as you go up. And remember, you don't really need a whole lot of Inktense, that's why it takes so long to get through your pencils. Because a little bit goes a long way with the Inktense pencils, which is part of what I love about them. And I've got them for a very long time. They're very economical that way. I'm going to go all the way up to the top, and there's that panel. And be careful when you activate it that you don't smear too much of the very dark over to the lighter sections, or else you will lose the effect. And this panel here technically is facing the light, so you don't really want much of the colour in it at all, or else you lose the illusion that light's striking it. So I just put a little bit here. See where this pipe connects here? That's going to be in shadow, so let's give it a shadow there. And where it bends down around the knee, let's do that too. Probably just a little bit line there. And up here it gets a bit lighter, so I would just kind of put a bit dark around here and just fade it out, and then leave it all white up here so that it looks like the light's striking it. Okay, time to activate. Once again, have a piece of paper nearby that you can brush off the excess ink with, so that you're not getting saturating your area with too much ink when destroying all your light highlights. I like to move from the light areas into the dark, just very carefully pushing it all down, and then being careful to reserve that bright streak of contrast at the bottom to show reflected light. And I'm just pushing ink around a little bit while it's still active, so you've got a nice gradient from light to dark. Down here as well. Remembering again, before you move to the next area, to brush off the excess ink, or else you're going to end up with a dark area where you want to highlight. This area again, we'll start off where it's nice and bright at the top and work our way down. Remember, with Inktense it sets very fast, particularly on colouring book paper, because it's not watercolour paper, and therefore you really don't have a whole lot of time to smooth things over and make them look sharpened and nicely smoothed over. I find some papers are better than other papers. It really just depends on your colouring book. So if you're using Inktense, I suggest, like all colouring books, you experiment on a back page or a dud page that you're not really that interested in colouring in, so that you know exactly how your materials are going to perform on the paper before you commit to something that you really want to turn out well. Here we've got this bit that's facing the light, so I don't want any colour up here very much. I just want it to all start to get darker as it goes down, moves away from the light. Trying again to preserve this edge. Now if you stuff up and you don't preserve a good edge, you can always add it back again using the white gel pen or some white ink with a paintbrush. So you haven't ruined it, and some of it, you know, is allowed. It doesn't have to be technically 100% perfect. It's just got to be the overall effect look good. There we go. Now I've got a nice metal surface again. We've got to wait till that dries, and then we can add some nice sharp highlights in with the gel pen once again. So we'll give that a few minutes to dry off, and in this heat it won't take long. Fast forward now, this is dry and we can apply the white gel pen. If you like, you could just leave it like this and have more of a burnished metal effect. Or if you want the high contrast, go for your gel pen and add those really shiny effects. Now the first thing I'm going to do is just correct along this line here where I've gone a little bit too far over with my Inktense pencil. So I've repaired that. Now to add some nice shiny area here, I'm going to run, because the light's striking it down here, I'm going to make a line which is more or less running down the length of this leg, and you can make it just a little bit wavy or a little bit jagged and break it up a little bit like that, and see how I've got a little bit of a lightning strike look to it, and I've given it a nice shiny look. I also like to add just a few dots somewhere to represent little specks of light striking it, and I'm going to do that right here on this side here, where it's going to be a nice high contrast because you've got the darker, the very dark grey. There you go, a few little speckles here and there, and maybe over here. Don't overdo it. And there you go, it's done. You've got a nice shiny metallic looking leg there, and it's fairly easy to accomplish. Okay, now I will show you how to achieve more or less the same effect using the coloured pencils. Back with the coloured pencils, And here I have my Paynes Grey again and my light ultramarine. Don't forget you can experiment with different shades of grey and different effects as well to achieve a metallic look, and of course different colours for different coloured metals. But we'll stick with these for now. The Paynes Grey, I often find it helps when you're doing metal stuff with pencils to have the pencils really sharp if you want that chrome look, to get that really sharp, bright contrast to give it that metallic shine. So again, we're going to look at the light striking from this end. So if I'm doing this outside of this bolt here, I'll make it darker down the bottom, making sure to leave a little area of shine as I've done here. And then make it go lighter as you go up. There we go. And if I wanted to make a little bit blue right here in this center bit, where it's not quite the lightest and not the darkest, but this center bit, I'll just gently blush in a little bit of blue. Okay. And as you can see, that nicely matches up the bluish tone of the Derwent Inktense pencils with these Polychromos pencils where the Paynes Grey isn't quite so blue. Now the body of this bolt, this bit here is really in shadow, so I'm just going to go in hard with the Paynes Grey because that's a very shaded bit. And as you approach the outer perimeter of this bolt, I'm just going to make it a bit lighter. It won't go light all the way, but you can see there's a contrast from light to dark there, because this is the bit that's more in shadow and this is the bit that's more exposed to light. Now for the rest of the bolt itself, we'll do the same thing where we'll give it a little bit of a halo of white just around the last millimetre before the line art, making it darkest at the bottom and bring it up to make it lighter as you go up. And the top little bit, same thing, darkest at the bottom and lighter as you go up. Just mash it in there a bit, keeping that little halo of white around the outside. There is far more complicated ways, of course, to get a metallic effect, far more advanced ways, but for the sake of colouring in and enjoying the process, this I find is probably the most simple method to get a good result without spending hours and hours trying to achieve it. Now I've got the light ultramarine, and again just in that middle section of light and dark I will blush in the blue. Finally, the last touch of course is to add your white highlights, and with this you've got a choice. You can just do a couple of dots or you can make a few little lines. I like to do a little line here, again breaking it up, maybe a few dots down here. And there you go, very metallic looking bolt there. Okay, so I've shown you the two ways of colouring in this picture with two different mediums. I'm going to continue on with this picture now and see what I can come up with in terms of colours and how it looks overall. Hopefully I can get this completed before the video is finally finished editing, and I can include a picture of the finished piece. If not, I will upload my finished piece up onto la-artistino.com so you can see how it all turned out in the end. And that concludes our tutorial for today. I hope you've got something useful out of it. To all of you, have fun on whatever colouring adventures you're currently on, and until next time, happy colouring. I hope you're enjoying any colouring adventures that you are currently on, and until next time, happy colouring!